For a long time, I tried to fix my marriage by working on my marriage. I read the books, I did the communication tools, I tried the date nights and the check-ins, and the come to Jesus conversations. Oh, how many did I have? Some of it helped, in the way that rearranging furniture helps. Things looked different a little, but the room was the same. What finally moved the needle, for me and for almost every couple I've watched do real transformational work, wasn't working on the relationship. It was working on myself. And I know how that sounds. I know it can feel like a dodge, like I'm telling you to go meditate while your marriage is on fire. I'm not. I'm telling you something I believe with everything I have, something I've lived from my own experience. The fire started inside, and the water is in there too. And the most empowering move I can make is to take full ownership of what I can change and refuse to take accountability for what's not mine. I'm Becky Moller, mindfulness teacher, author of Undone, Unafraid, and creator of Undone Academy, a mindful framework for healing almost anything. Today, I want to talk about why healing yourself isn't a detour from healing your relationship. It's the most direct route there is. Here's the thing most of us don't want to hear. Your partner, as difficult or wrong as they may be, is probably not your biggest problem. I don't mean that to minimize what's hard, and I also don't mean that to put any blame on you for whatever you might be experiencing. Some things your partner does are genuinely hurtful. Some might even be abusive or destructive, and there's no excuse for it. I'm not asking you ever to bypass that reality. And I want you to hold boundaries or remove yourself from situations that you shouldn't be a part of. But what I want you to feel in this video is that you have the power within you to respond to whatever's happening in a way that is powerful, that is aligned, that is healthy. And if you're having a hard time holding those boundaries within yourself, then that's the work for you to focus on. Because underneath the complaint or legitimate dissonance about what they did or said or didn't do, more important than the way they check out or blow up or shut down, is your response to it. And I want you to know, I see this in two extremes typically. One side is people who are enabling or allowing things to be happening in their relationship that are truly destructive and shouldn't be allowed. And on the other side, I see people who are unconsciously blaming their partner for any emotional dysregulation that they feel and turning their partner into the villain because they're oblivious and unable to manage their own emotional pain. So there's two sides of this, and underneath both sides, there's almost always a wound that predates your partner, a wound that gets activated by them, a place in you that never learned to feel safe or seen or enough. And here's what happens. That wound starts running the show. It shapes how you hear things. It shapes what you reach for. It shapes the story you tell yourself about what your partner's behavior means about you or their love for you. And you can't fix that by fixing your partner. Another person is literally incapable of healing you. You can't argue your way out of it. You can't even understand your way out of it, though cognitive understanding is a start. The only way through this kind of pain is into yourself, into the body, into the present moment, and into the places that are still stuck and hooked. So what does it actually mean to do the work toward healing yourself? Because I don't mean years of therapy dissecting your childhood, though therapy has its place. And I also don't mean endless self-help books that give you a framework and vocabulary to organize your wounds more neatly or start using terminology that makes you feel like you got it figured out. I mean something simpler and harder than both of those things. I mean mindfulness. Learning to notice what's happening in your body in the moment and taking a pause before you react. I mean developing the capacity to pause in the middle of a charged moment and ask, what am I actually afraid of right now? Not what did they do wrong or how could they? What am I afraid of? And what do I need right now to calm my nervous system down? I mean, building that kind of ability to regulate your nervous system when you feel threatened, not by stalking out of the room, not by picking up your phone and scrolling while you nod your head, but by staying present with emotional discomfort long enough for it to tell you something that's under there. I mean, getting honest enough to start to unpeel the core wound beneath the surface complaint. Not, you never listened to me, but I'm terrified. I'm invisible to the people I love most. Not, you're always so critical, but I still struggle with this nagging feeling inside that I am not enough. And when you say that, I feel it in the pit of my stomach, and it's really hard for me to stay regulated. That's the work. It's slow. It's not linear, and you have to do it in a body, not just in a journal, not just in a therapy office. The body is where the wound lives, and the body is the modality through which the healing comes through. When you start doing this kind of work, something strange happens in the relationship, not because you changed your partner, because you changed what you're bringing to the room. You stop needing them to perform a certain way in order for you to feel okay. We call this differentiation. You stop hearing every silence as rejection, every criticism as proof that you're not enough. You start to have a stable, centered self to bring to the relationship, a self that isn't dependent on them for its stability. And paradoxically, that's when they can actually start to get close to you. And when they're left to have to start looking at their own stuff because your reactions are no longer muddying the water. Because when we are running on a wound, we push people away in the very act of reaching for them. Our need is too loaded. Our expectations are too high. We're not really looking at them. We're looking for relief. And we're telling ourselves that it's their job to give it to us. When you do your own work, that's when you actually start to be able to see your partner. See them for who and what they are, not through the lens of your own wound, not through what you are trying to extract from them, not as the person who activates your fear or withholds your approval, but you start to be able to see them as a human being with their own wounds, their own fears, their own limited and sincere attempts to love you or hurt you if that's the case. That shift is the beginning of real clarity for what your next right step is in this relationship, and potentially the beginning of real connection. Not performed connection to keep everybody happy and not pouting, not strategic communication to try to get what you want or avoid a fight. Is the kind of connection that happens when two people actually show up. I worked with a woman, I'll call her Sallie, who came to me convinced the problem was her marriage. In fact, she came to me as a referral from the secretary at the divorce lawyer's office where she was inquiring about filing divorce papers. She was exhausted in her marriage, resentful, going through the motions, and quietly considering that the marriage was a mistake and it was time to cut her losses. She didn't come to me for relationship work. She came because she felt lost in her own life, and she was at a rock bottom where she was open to this suggestion to reach out and give this mindfulness-based work a try. Over about 8 months, she did some of the deepest individual work I've seen. She was open, she was willing, and she started to understand the wound that had been driving her for 30 years, the one that showed up as hypervigilance in her marriage, as an almost involuntary need to manage and control the emotional temperature of every room she walked into. She learned to feel that in her body and to stay with it instead of acting from it. And gradually, not dramatically, not all at once, her marriage changed. Not because her husband changed, though he did start to shift in response to her, which is almost always what happens in this work. In relationship, we're like puzzle pieces. So when one puzzle piece fundamentally changes shape, it kind of forces something to happen on the other side of that. That partner can no longer click in and just continue forward at status quo the way they used to. They have to decide, what am I going to do with this shift? So because Sallie was different, she stopped fighting battles she'd already won in her head. She started asking for what she actually needed instead of waiting to be disappointed. She focused on her own growth and what she was bringing to the relationship. She took ownership for some of the big mistakes that she had made in this relationship, which was a very brave thing to do. She became, in her own words, someone I actually want to be around. That's what I mean. Not a better version of who you were, a freer one, a person that you want to look in the mirror and you feel self-respect looking back at you. This is exactly the kind of work we do alongside each other at my couples retreat. People come expecting to work on the relationship, and we do, but not really in the way they anticipate. We start with the individual, each person doing their own honest reckoning with their own patterns, their own wounds that they've brought into the marriage. And then we bring those two people together and we ask, what would it look like to actually show up for each other from this grounded place? The Enneagram work we do at this retreat is about understanding your own type, your own core fear, your own core desire, and the self-defeating behaviors and coping strategies you've built around your wound. So you can catch yourself and start to take more ownership of how you're showing up, and then understanding your partners, not as a tool to manage them, because that's their side of the street, as a doorway to compassion, to meet on a level playing field of shared humanity, two individuals on a journey, rowing their own boats, choosing to take this journey alongside each other. The embodied practices we do are about practicing staying present in your own body when things get charged, because presence is a skill. You can train it and you have to practice it. That skill transforms what's possible in every conversation you have, especially the hard ones. And I'm really passionate about this because I've seen it over and over and over again. Two people who have done their own work don't just have a better relationship. They have a different kind of relationship. One that has enough room in it for both people to breathe, to evolve, and to feel and experience life with a richness and depth that they've never experienced before. If this is resonating, if some part of you already knew this and just needed someone to say it out loud, I want you to know about my couples retreat coming up in September. It's a 3-day full immersive experience for couples who are committed and ready for this kind of work. Couples who want to go deeper. We work through the Enneagram as a couple's lens. We do embodied work and we build a foundation from the inside out. The link is in the description. Spots are limited, so make sure you act quickly if you want to make sure that you have a spot. If you're not ready for a retreat, but you want to start understanding what you're each bringing to the relationship, my free couples check-in guide is a good place to begin. It's a nightly ritual I give every couple I work with and that I've been doing with my husband for over 10 years. That link is also in the description. If you want to keep going on this thread, my video on the 5 signs that your relationship is in a midlife crisis is a good watch next. It'll help you name what's happening before you decide what to do next about it. And if resentment is part of what you're carrying, I have a video on healing resentment before it ends your marriage. Both are linked below, and I hope they serve you. I'll see you in the next video.